All right, folks, we're ready to get started. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. Good. We're going to have a discussion regarding policy on Capitol Hill and stopping the crypto ban. We're going to be joined by a very exciting guest, Perry-Ann Boring. She's a visionary leader in the blockchain industry and the founder and CEO of the Digital Chamber, the premier trade association dedicated to representing and advancing blockchain technology. Under her leadership, the Digital Chamber has played a pivotal role in shaping the blockchain landscape in the United States. Her tireless efforts have also effectively safeguarded the industry from detrimental regulatory burdens. She has shared her expertise by testifying before the U.S. Senate and regularly contributes valuable insights on digital assets and blockchain innovations through media appearances. Forbes honored her as one of America's top 50 women in tech. Congratulations, that's fantastic. Furthermore, CoinDesk named her one of the 10 most influential people in blockchain. She's got a trailblazing career spanning advocacy, journalism, public service. Please welcome to the stage, Perry-Ann Boring. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm so excited that you're here. I mean, every time I hear Perry-Ann speak, when I see her on television, I get a little bit smarter. I pause, I rewind, I take notes. So I'm excited to have this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, 2024, it is absolutely a pivotal year. We're in an election year. Let's maybe start with a holistic big picture. Maybe give a little bit of the current state of affairs and what's at stake for all of us.
I think this is an incredibly important year, not just because it's an election, but the tables have really turned in a very scary direction for the people in the digital asset space. I've been working in digital, you went through my whole bio, thank you, that was very kind. But I was the first person in the country to lobby on behalf of the digital asset space. So I've been on the ground from day one helping build the legal and the regulatory framework for our industry. Thank you. And this really used to not be a partisan issue. Actually, when we first got started, it's kind of funny. People are like, Bitcoin, crypto, this doesn't sound real. People didn't really care to meet with us. They just thought this was a fad. What they heard about, what they may have learned about digital assets, probably something they read in the news, may not be a great kind of first impression. So, it was kind of like, first they ignored us, and then they laughed at us. Then it was kind of, okay, is this serious? But now they're fighting us. We're in the fight you stage. I love that Gandhi quote. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they fight you. And the last one is then you win. And we are going to win, but we're not quite there yet. We just started the fight you stage. There are many politicians who do not believe any of us have a right to be here, who don't believe we have a right to engage and assemble on the blockchain. They don't believe we have a right to free speech, to communicate through open source technology, softwares and code. And they're working to restrict our access to be able to do all of the above. And that's exactly what open source cryptocurrencies are. They provide the ability to exercise our First Amendment rights to a much deeper level. And we face extremely real threats. Yeah. There are very real attempts all throughout the policymaking community to censor blockchain networks, to prevent or try to restrict us from being able to use self-hosted wallets. Can you imagine if the government tried to ban like a traditional physical billfold? Like, you can't use that thing anymore. We're sorry, it's not KYC'd. We have no way to identify that instrument. It's banned. Can you just, that's what they're doing.
That's exactly what they're doing.
With digital wallets. And there's outright attempts to try to ban crypto overall. So that's why we're in an absolutely critical time. A lot at stake. Make no mistake, we are in the fight you phase, and we all have a role to play in that.
Excellent. One would think it would be ignorance, but I know you and your group have actively tried to educate members of Congress and legislators. Why is it falling on deaf ears? Is it willful? ignorance? Is it pure ignorance? What is happening? It's unfathomable to people in this room, myself included. What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors at play, and we do have a lot of really amazing champions all throughout Congress. I like to say we're in the business of minting blockchain champions. We spend many, many years building relationships with people in office, and the mass majority of people, they want to learn. I do believe that they're serving in a public service role for the right reason. At least they're trying to. They really are trying to do good. They're willing to have a substantive conversation with you. It's really just a small group of outliers that have their own political agenda, who don't want to have a conversation about data or facts or logic or common sense. They're just there to effectuate a political agenda, which is anti-crypto, anti-First Amendment, and they're trying to weed it out. But we do have a lot of champions. There's just some people in very high places in leadership today who are totally anti-crypto. But Congress is also one of the most dysfunctional organisms that exists probably in the world. I worked in Congress, I still do, just in a kind of a different capacity now. It's extremely dysfunctional. It was kind of designed that way. It was kind of set up to make it very difficult to get new laws passed, made into law, and I think that's actually a good thing. Things should be heavily debated before they become the law of the land. But we have other issues where you've got a political agenda being effectuated against our industry, and that's posing significant risk for our community.
I understand. One of those powerful people is obviously Elizabeth Warren. Her AML bill is seemingly picking up steam. So please describe the bill and what are the threats and risks?
So she deserves the booze.
Amen.
She's come out. She loves it. Like if she was here, she'd be like, "Yes, they hate me." I think we accept her as our villain, and we'll fight her on a policy level, obviously not a physical level. So her legislation is called the Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act. That's her legislation. It was introduced in the previous Congress. It didn't go anywhere last Congress. It was reintroduced this Congress and is gaining a lot of traction, as you mentioned, Will. It now has over 19 sponsors in the Senate. Of course, we have 100 senators, so about 20% of the US Congress is on record today of trying to ban cryptocurrencies outright, make it impossible to use this technology in a legally compliant way. It also has bipartisan support. So it's not just one party, you have both parties supporting this legislative proposal. There's been 3 hearings that Chairman Sherrod Brown, so the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, he's held 3 hearings on this issue. This bill's been deliberated on 3 times. And there is an attempt by Sean Castens, a member of the House, to introduce companion legislation in the House. This is gaining significant momentum. It is a very real threat to our community. We need to be taking this Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act, AKA the Crypto Ban Bill, seriously. So let me tell you exactly what it does. Because most people are like, wait, it doesn't say we're banning crypto. It's not what it says. You have to kind of understand how the technology works and how the Bank Secrecy Act to kind of get to the conclusion that, wait, this actually would ban the use of the technology altogether. So it defines a couple different things in the crypto space. It defines any type of mining, so if you're mining Bitcoin or any other type of cryptocurrency, that function. It defines any type of node validation service, so if you're doing, if you're validating any type of blockchain, that is defined in this bill. It defines she uses the term unhosted wallet, self-hosted wallet, your own wallet, and then a couple other things. They're all defined in the bill, and then it adds them under the Bank Secrecy Act. So all of these activities would be considered financial institutions under the Bank Secrecy Act. So what does that mean? That means any type of miner, node validator, self-hosted wallet, plus a bunch of other stuff would be subjected to the same regulations that financial institutions are. That makes no sense.
None.
There is no way to comply. So that means if you're mining Bitcoin, for example, the mining company would have to know the personal identifiable information, so name, address, social, of every transaction being validated. That information doesn't exist. It's not available on-chain. That's not on-chain data. We don't want that data on-chain. That's a significant privacy consideration, which means you couldn't mine Bitcoin legally in the United States. You couldn't validate or run transactions for any blockchain in the United States. You also couldn't operate your own wallet legally. The enforceability of this is extremely questionable. Obviously, we would challenge this in law, and I think the law would be on our side. But if this were passed into law and signed into law, which it has bipartisan support, this would create very significant disruptions for all businesses operating this space. It would be absolutely detrimental. So we must kill this bill. And that's what I'm really dedicated my life to doing at this point.
You have our support, undoubtedly, but what do we do? How do we help?
Yeah, thank you. So for this specific bill, it's the Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act, or S2669. Everybody call your congressman, call your senator, and tell them to oppose this bill. And we have 19 senators, so we have 19 states represented. So you probably have a senator, it's very likely, it's 20% chance you have a senator that's on this bill. Raise hell. Show up to their town halls, ask them in a public forum, why are you trying to ban Bitcoin? Why, as a sponsor of S2669, you're effectively banning my ability to use open source software here in the United States? And make them defend their position. And then they're gonna have to figure out, wait, because they were told by Elizabeth Warren that this is an anti-money laundering bill, we're fixing a compliance. You know, her whole argument is, well, crypto needs to be regulated the same way as banks are. We're just trying to fix like a compliance gap to make it all, you know, tight and regulated. No. This is a backdoor ban. Make those senators defend their position. You are not trying to address a regulatory challenge. You are trying to ban the industry. Why are you doing that? And I bet a bunch of them don't realize that's what the bill does because they've been misled because that's what politicians do and that's what Elizabeth Warren did. Make them defend their position. And I bet you some of them, if we all did that, some of them would probably go back to their staff and be like, dude, I'm getting so much heat on this compliance bill. Like, I thought we were fixing a compliance situation. Right. What is this? And if we put enough heat on them, we can probably get members to come off. So we can all help with this.
I mean, we watch Congress on television, and I doubt 2/3 could attach a PDF file to an email. So I really doubt there's any literacy when it comes
There's truth to that. So I did take a meeting with the Senate office, and I'm meeting with the staff, and we're talking about this issue, and the guy just goes, ma'am, my boss does not send his own emails. I don't think he's going to be able to support this effort. And we're like, what? You don't send emails? Like, I'm like, either you're incompetent or extremely wealthy that you don't have to send an email, but like, maybe it's both, but come on.
Seriously. Let's move a little bit forward about stablecoin legislation. What do you see happening in 2024?
So the stablecoin efforts are extremely important. We need to bring regulatory clarity to the industry, and the stablecoin market is an incredibly important part of the digital asset ecosystem overall. So there is a bill in the House, a stablecoin bill in the House, and we now, just as of a couple weeks ago, we have a stablecoin bill that was introduced on the Senate side. So a really good development that we now have another bill, but it's not a companion bill, so it's not the same bill. They don't say the exact same things. The language isn't the same. So a lot has to happen. The House and Senate are going to have to reconcile those bills. They're going to have to debate it out. Whose bill is going to get through each chamber and both chambers? So that negotiation has to happen. And then the bill's drafters also have to identify a writer to put it on. It's very unlikely that Congress will just bring forward a standalone vote on a stablecoin bill. They likely will need to put it on to another type of vehicle, these must-pass bills that you always hear about, identify a writer. So that needs to happen. And then we have to get support from both chambers and both parties to get it through. This is possible. It is... it will be difficult. A lot of things are going to have to go right for all of those things to happen. So we're cautiously optimistic to get this done. There's no reason why Congress can't get it done, They're really just, if anything, it's just them standing in their own way, but it is possible.
Are all of these pieces of legislation pre-presidential election in November, or are they going to be kicked down the road in terms of timeline?
Yeah, so there will be some votes after the election. The Congress goes all the way through the end of the year, so there is some room on the calendar after the election. But we're very quickly going to move into a lame duck here. So if it's not done, by mid-year, the likelihood of it getting passed through is just going to decrease more and more the closer we get to the elections and after the elections.
As you are so immersed in the regulatory space, what is it with the United States? Like, why are we purposely doing this? And where do we sit in comparison to some of the other countries you've studied? And I know we're losing steam. We all know we're falling behind. But what are your thoughts on the motivation? And how do we fix it?
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, as an American, it's sad. And you look at how the United States addressed the internet. The internet changed the course of the United States. The internet was invented by a government agency, by DARPA. It was then commercialized by our private sector, and it led to a huge tech boom that benefited us. 4 out of the top 5 largest companies in the world are all internet companies. Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet, and Meta. The 5th one is a Saudi oil company. That's a whole other conversation. But 4 out of the top 5 companies in the world today are companies that are internet companies. What do they all have in common? These are all US businesses. Why are they here? That didn't happen by mistake.
Right.
Our leaders recognize that the internet would be an important technology and that we should harness its development here in the United States so Americans will benefit from this technology, and we have. Imagine if the US had taken the same regulatory approach towards 1.0 as it's doing towards Web 3.0. Do you think Apple and Amazon and Google and Meta and all these major companies would be American companies? What if the biggest technology company, the biggest tech and the biggest companies in the world were Russian companies or Chinese companies? What would that mean for us today? Would we even be here?
That's right.
I think we'd be in a very different place. I believe this is a national security issue. Web 3.0 is more important than Web 1.0 because this has to do with money. Web 1.0 is about communication. We can communicate in a digital format, peer-to-peer. Web 3.0 is we can transact in a digital format, peer-to-peer. And if we don't own and control those rails, somebody else will. And we have everything to lose as the world reserve currency. We are the most prosperous country in the world. We are taking this for granted. And everybody knows it, and everybody wants to take it from us, and that's exactly what they're doing. I just came back from the UAE. I attended a huge event for the crypto space called Token 2049. Over 10,000 people from all over the world came to the UAE. Why? Why the UAE? Because their policymakers recognize what we don't get here, which is this technology is going to be important, and we should figure out how we can benefit from it. So they've built regulatory regimes, and they are regulating digital asset businesses there, and everyone's going there to launch companies, and the coolest stuff is being built there, not here. This is a national security issue, and if we don't get this right, it could change the course of our history.
That's incredible. And everybody in this room is on the forefront of knowledge in this space. We need to go to our homes, and we need to share this information with our friends and influential people in our lives. Like, this is a paramount issue facing the entire country, not just our industry or our businesses. It's mind-blowing to me. And it's important about who we elect and who we vote for. And with John Deaton and Greg Kidd running for office, both being so immersed in the digital asset space, we see them both as warriors. Do you see them? Can they be a force if they're elected, or will they just run into the buzzsaw of the status quo? Like, I'm so bewildered by the state of our government at the moment.
Well, if we could knock out Elizabeth Warren, that would be huge. She is the self-proclaimed head of the anti-crypto army. So if anyone has a chance to beat her, it is John Deaton. I've endorsed John. I do have some contacts in the state, and I'm doing everything I can personally to support him, and I can tell you kind of what my contacts there are saying. I remember when Scott Brown was a member of the U.S. Senate and Elizabeth Warren had challenged him and she won, he only lost by a couple points.
Right.
And I remember that vividly because I was working on the Hill and that was one of the most important seats at the time. We were all watching that race very closely, and that changed the structure of the House or of the Senate. And most people, when they think of Massachusetts, people just always say, "Oh, it's Massachusetts. There's no way a Republican's going to win." Anything could happen. Anything could happen in that state, and if we can take her out, we would take out our biggest villain. And that, I think that would change the tone and the tenor of how DC is currently operating. I think it would also send a very clear message to lawmakers that the people do not stand with them in restricting our access to an open source technology. Remember, code is a form of free speech because code is a language, it's just ones and zeros, and code is protected by free speech, and this has gone to the courts. And we should be reiterating that. If you're trying to restrict my ability to use an open source cryptocurrency, you're violating my First Amendment right. And any member who has sworn to uphold the Constitution is violating their duty of office. And that's exactly what these members are doing. And if we can get them out, we will be able to send a clear message to DC that we do not stand with them. And I think a lot of these other anti-crypto politicians would say, oh, wait a second. We could lose our jobs over this, so this isn't worth it. Let's back off. Mm-hmm. So it's incredibly important that we get the right people of office. Greg Kidd would also be an incredible new member to have. Also, Ohio is a really important seat as well. So Sherrod Brown, he's one of Elizabeth Warren's BFFs on the Hill. He's been in office for over 30 years. He's been in the Senate. Really has not lived the life most Americans live by having a real job. His job as a politician, that's really, I believe in term limits. Serve, do your time, but let somebody else serve. He doesn't uphold that principle at all. He's the chairman of the Banking Committee. He's one of the most senior and powerful members in the Senate. If we could take him out as well, that would really send a clear message to Washington that this anti-crypto stuff is not going to be tolerated by the people. So elections do matter. And we don't have to knock out everybody that's anti-crypto. If we can get a couple who are on record being against us, I think you can send that message we need without having to necessarily put money and engage in elections in all 50 states.
Okay, good. In the few minutes we have left, what other bills are out there that we need to be aware of, that need to be on our radar?
Yeah, so one of the biggest issues that we hear from businesses and investors in the digital asset space is the lack of regulatory clarity. That's really kind of the main conversation we're having, that businesses are having with policymakers, particularly in Washington. We don't have regulatory clarity on which digital assets are considered a security or a commodity or something else. The SEC has really refused to do that. This crowd knows that very well because you guys have all been on that journey with XRP and Ripple. But every token has that same question. And if businesses don't know where these assets fit in the regulatory jurisdiction, how do you follow the law? If you don't know which law applies to your business, and that's why everybody's leaving the United States. So how do we fix that? That's really Congress's job. Congress is currently working on comprehensive, we'll call it market structure legislation that defines each agency's role in the digital asset space. The US has an extremely complex regulatory landscape, particularly a financial services landscape where you have so many different regulatory bodies. You have the SEC overseeing securities, the CFTC, which oversees the futures markets. You have Treasury, where you have FinCEN doing the Bank Secrecy Act, and OFAC, sanctions compliance, and IRS with tax. You have 3 different bank regulators, the Federal Reserve, the OCC, and the FDIC. I mean, the list of acronyms just goes on and on and on and on and on. It's not like this in most countries. In Singapore, which is a huge digital asset hub, you have the Monetary Authority of Singapore. It's all financial services and the central bank all in one-stop shop. Same thing in the United Kingdom. They've made a lot of headway and news over the past couple of weeks that they're moving forward. Well, they just have one entity. It's the Financial Conduct Authority, where all financial services stuff is in that one-stop shop. It's not like that in the United States. You have all these different regulators you have to deal with, and they're all kind of fighting and clamoring for jurisdiction, because whichever one has the most power is going to be the most powerful, and that's the game in DC, is you want to be the most powerful. So it's all these things. So Congress needs to decide who has authority over what types of activities and entities building and investing and developing in the digital asset space. That is the market structure legislation. That's why it's really important. It's very, very substantive, and these are deep legislative proposals. On the House side, we have the FIT Act, or the Fit for the 21st Century Act, that was developed between the House Financial Services and the Agriculture Committee. This is really groundbreaking that those two committees came together and built a bill together and introduced it as like a bill by both committees. Those committees typically compete with each other, and they said, we're gonna work together and get one bill out. That's the FIT Act. And it passed out of both committees earlier this Congress, and it's waiting to be brought forward to the floor for a vote. So you can call the speaker and say, bring the FIT Act for a vote. That's one thing you can do. On the Senate side, because of course you gotta pass both chambers, the market structure equivalent is the Lummis-Gillibrand bill, the Responsible Financial Innovation Act. That bill is even more comprehensive than the FIT Act, because it also includes a whole bunch of other activities beyond just market structure, including stablecoins. So that also has to get through. That has not been moved forward through committee. It hasn't really made any progress in the legislative process. So call Sherrod Brown. Say, hey, Sherrod, you've had 3 hearings on Elizabeth Warren's banned crypto bill. How about a hearing on the market structure bill? Because we can get some regulatory clarity. That would move things forward. So we have one bill in the House, one bill in the Senate. One's passed committee, needs to go to the floor for a vote. One hasn't moved at all. So those 2 bills have to obviously go through that process, and then they need to be reconciled between the House and Senate. And the sponsors of those bills are working to reconcile them. That's part of this kind of stablecoin effort where they pulled that out and they're doing that separately. But this probably is not going to happen this Congress. It's highly unlikely we would get market structure done this Congress, which is another reason why they pulled stablecoins out, because they want to try to get something done for the digital asset space. But market structure is extremely, there's a lot to debate. You have SEC law, CFTC law, disclosures, how tokens can be issued and offered. It's a lot. So those are the major pieces of legislation, those market structure bills, plus you have the stablecoin bills. And there's several dozen bills that have been introduced that do a lot of different smaller things. But the most important ones that would really change the landscape are these market structure bills.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to be negative all the time. So what do you see that's giving you hope that you could share with us that we can galvanize our efforts?
I think I'm extremely optimistic in the long run about the future of the cryptocurrency space, particularly here in the United States. People often, you hear this a lot, that the U.S. is notorious for getting things, doing things wrong every step of the way, and they try literally every option, all the wrong options, and then they eventually get to the right answer. It just kind of takes a little while. So I think we'll eventually get to the right answers, because this technology represents American values. Again, I believe that digital assets and blockchain technology is freedom technology. It allows us to own and control our digital and financial futures in ways that weren't possible before. What's more American than that? So I do think this eventually will be embraced, not just by our policymakers, but by the people. And that's, I think that's what's really positive and encouraging. And at the end of the day, who can reckon with an idea whose time has come? What makes a network powerful? And at the end of the day, cryptocurrencies are networks. What makes a network powerful is how many nodes it has. We're the nodes. The people that use it, we're the nodes. The more nodes a network has, the more powerful it is. So the more of us who participate in the network, the quicker we hit those adoption curves. There's not much people can do once everybody is running their own node and running their own self-hosted wallet. What are you going to do? How are you going to regulate a leather billfold? You can't really do that.
Right.
So kind of the same thing with cryptocurrencies. How are you going to prevent people from operating a self-hosted wallet. I mean, at some point, that's just going to become unenforceable. So I am extremely optimistic about the future of our community because the technology is on our side and it represents our values as Americans, and eventually we will get it right.
Excellent. Well, hopefully you've inspired all of us. I know you've inspired me. If we are inspired to action, where can we go? You've mentioned several bills. What website do you recommend? Where can we go write these down when we want to call our congresspeople? How do we take that first step?
Well, we host a library of resources on our website at digitalchamber.org, so you can check that out at any time and see exactly what's coming up in Congress at any point in time. And if we have calls to action to the community, they'll be on there. Sign up for our newsletter so you can get daily alerts from us. But we all have a role to play. Everyone has a voice. I think everyone needs to participate in the political process. Make your voice heard. It helps us with send a clear message. And that's exactly what we're trying to do at the Digital Chamber.
Excellent, thank you. And I know you've got a dinner this evening, so why don't you share details?
Thank you. Well, one other way you can support is obviously financially. We are a nonprofit, we're a 501c6, and we also have a foundation, a 501c3. It's the Digital Chambers Foundation. Our whole staff, we're fully funded by the industry itself. We don't take any type of outside money. It's all donations from the community. So we're really proud to be your advocates on the ground in Washington, and we're extremely grateful to XRP Las Vegas and Bradley and his team for having us here this week and for hosting us for dinner tonight. We are holding a benefit dinner. All the proceeds go to our foundation. So if you buy a ticket, this is a tax hint or tip, you can give it to your accountant, and because we're a 501c3, you can write that off. So you can either give that money to the IRS or you can donate it to your favorite crypto charity by joining us for dinner tonight. But we'll be doing the first ever crypto awards ceremony tonight. We have a live musical performance by Bradley himself, which this is going to be his first time performing in front of the crypto community. So you guys have got to come. It's going to be a lot of fun. But we only have a couple seats left. We rented out the entire House of Blues. It's a private dinner, but we do have limited space. There's only a few tickets left. But if you scan that QR code, you can get a ticket, and it goes to it goes to our team to do exactly what we do. We're very, very grateful for your support. We hope you guys will join us tonight.
All right. Well, let's hear it for Perry Ann Boring, everybody. Thank you so much. That was excellent. See you soon. Thank you again. All right, folks, we're going to take a short break. We'll return at 1:15. All right? Thanks.